This is 101 WWE matches everyone should watch at least once. Yeah.
Number 59, Umaga versus Bobby Lashley at
I fucking love Bobby Lashley. Hold up. That's crazy. Oh no, I know what the I know what the Intercontinental Championship is. I didn't know that was the match though. Ooh. I talk about it sometimes, but I do keep up with like wrestling, but for the longest time I was more into like New Japan because you know that's what I could get in like Asia. But yeah. Yeah, I remember like I know like I think the British Bulldog, didn't he like fall off like heavy? I know he fell off like insanely bad, right? But damn. Yeah, I love Bobby Lashley.
WrestleMania 23. It may have been Bobby Lashley versus Umaga in the ring, but the Battle of the Billionaires was all about Donald Trump versus Vince McMahon. The two evil billionaires put their hair on the line as their two representatives fought, with Steve Austin drafted in to oversee everything as guest referee. Say what you will about McMahon and Trump, but the Battle of the Billionaires was an absolutely sensational piece of business, helping to draw a then record 1.2 million pay-per-view buys. For pure sports entertainment value, Umaga versus Lashley takes some topping. I mean, where else are you going to see a future president of the United States take the second worst ever Stone Cold Stunner? Where else are you going to see the former WWE CEO get his head shaved? Nowhere. That's where. Number 58, Braun Strowman versus Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns versus Samoa Joe at SummerSlam 2017. Big, meaty men slapping meat. That is what the main event of SummerSlam 2017 was all about, as these four beautiful monsters tore down Brooklyn's Barclays Center.
That's
Lesnar
crazy.
was defending his WWE Universal title, with the stipulation that, if he lost, both he and Heyman would have to leave WWE. What transpired was a train wreck, and I mean that in the most complimentary way possible. There was no fancy footwork on display here, just four dudes smashing each other and trying to destroy whoever they could whenever they had the chance, be it with fists, feet, announce tables, or the steel stairs. WWE have presented a bunch of these chaotic multi-man title matches over the years, but this one is one of the most enjoyable of all. It wasn't—
Wait, is this like still Shield Roman, or is this like after the Shield Roman? Big meaty men slapping me. After Shield? Yeah, I was like wondering, because he still has like his like Shield like vest thing on. So I was like, eh? Is that the no, is that the Shield vest? Wait, am I blind? No, it might just be his fit. Oh, we didn't like him? Oh, pre-Tribal Chief. Okay. I fucking love the Tribal Chief, man. You sang Gear music for years? I fucking love the Tribal Chief. Big meaty man, I can get behind this bestie, no. Reigns is still doing the Shield stuff? Okay. Dude, I will never stop talking about how much I love Roman Reigns when he was back in the Shield. Oh man, I love it.
Pretty, but it was never dull, and it kept people guessing for its not inconsiderable 20-minute runtime. Best watched with steak and eggs, one of those beer dispensing hats, and at least some form of tobacco for dessert. Number 57, Shawn Michaels versus Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 21. When Shawn Michaels made his improbable WWE return in 2002, fans immediately started booking him in fantasy matchups against the crop of stars that had emerged in the time since he was forced to retire 4 years earlier.
Okay.
One name that cropped up on everybody's list was Kurt Angle, though it would take WWE a few years to book the dream match. When it finally happened, appropriately at WrestleMania 21, it was well worth the wait. Two of the best of all time, given almost 30 minutes to play with at the granddaddy of them all. WWE made the match expecting nothing short of a classic, and that is just what they got, as the Heartbreak Kid and the Olympic Hero demonstrated just why they are as highly regarded as they are, not only when it comes to technique between the ropes, but also at manipulating fans' emotions. And they did it all without any wacky gimmick or stipulation attached. This was just two proud wrestlers trying to prove why they were the absolute best. And they did. Number 56.
I genuinely do enjoy like a ton of like, okay, HBK matches are so enjoyable. And like, sometimes like they're really good, sometimes they're really goofy. I've always enjoyed his matches. You get Roman got for being an Undertaker at WrestleMania on Raw was unreal. Oh man, I love Roman Reigns, man. We acknowledge him. I acknowledge him.
56, Ric Flair versus Mr. Perfect on Raw. A year after his stellar performance and victory in the 1992 Royal Rumble match, Ric Flair was on his way out of WWE and back to WCW. He still had some house show commitments and would stick around for another few weeks to ensure they were fulfilled, but his television swan song took place on the January 25th, 1993 episode of Raw, just the third ever edition of WWE's flagship. In it, he took on former manager Mr. Perfect in a loser leaves town match. The first ever really good Raw match, the two men had a very competitive, almost 20-minute long contest. It's not the best match either man ever had, but it was wrestled with a real sense of urgency, and the desperate commentary from the Nature Boy's close confidant Bobby Heenan also added much to the presentation.
Damn.
A noble way for Flair to exit for the first time, and a great early moment for the longest-running weekly episodic television show in history. And no, I'm not on the WWE payroll. Not yet anyway.
That's crazy.
Woo! Number 55, Hulk Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 6.
Ooh.
Hulkamania had been running wild for 6 incredibly profitable years when Vince McMahon decided that the red and yellow train needed to be pulled into the station. There was a new neon-soaked locomotive ready to be put on the tracks, with Vince believing that the Ultimate Warrior was the heir apparent to Hogan's crown. The torch was due to be passed in the main event of WrestleMania 6 as they geared up for an epic showdown with both the Intercontinental and World titles at stake. Neither Hogan nor Warrior have ever been noted for their pure wrestling ability or desire to work long competitive matches, but against one another, they put on one hell of a show. It may be a relic of its time viewed through today's eyes, but for them to go 25 minutes in an all-babyface encounter and take fans on such an emotional roller coaster is nothing to sniff at.
That
the
makes
two men in
sense.
the ring deserve a ton of credit, but so too does Pat Patterson, who supposedly mapped the match out with Terry and Jim beforehand. A comic book movie come to life. The only Hogan versus Warrior match in WWE was a clash of two living superheroes. Number 54, The Undertaker versus AJ Styles at WrestleMania 36.
Is this the one that I love? Hold up. Ultimate Warrior wasn't safe to work with? Yeah. I don't know. I genuinely feel like as much as I like certain wrestlers, if they're unsafe to work with, they're unsafe to work with, you know? I love this match. This match is so good. I love it. This was the COVID match, was it really? Video good? Video is good, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like if they're unsafe to work with, they're unsafe to work with. Like, no matter how much I like them, no ifs, ands, or buts, but people getting hurt for reals because of carelessness is definitely unacceptable, right? Right? It kind of blows. Oh yeah, no, the meme moment from this is really fucking good. I love this match.
With the COVID-19 pandemic throwing the world into disarray, many people thought or assumed that WWE would cancel WrestleMania 36, which had originally been scheduled to take place in front of the packed Raymond James Stadium in Florida. WWE, determined to live up to the maxim that the show must go on no matter what, decided to forge ahead and present a WrestleMania like never before.
Oh,
The highlight of
right.
the two-day event was AJ Styles and The Undertaker meeting for the first time in a Boneyard match. Filmed in a cinematic style, the Boneyard match was an ingenious way to work around the lack of a live audience and provided the perfect last ride for the Phenom.
Oh my god, it's the meme shot, let's go. Okay guys, so fun fact, when I was very briefly seeing this one guy from America, and I told him I really love WWE. So like, and he liked it too. So he had like the WWE like network, right? So I made him like stream this match, like this segment to me like a few times because of how much I enjoyed it. And you know, now you know, since you know it was a brief thing, now all I do is live vicariously through the meme. Just I love it. I love the meme.
Lots of cinematic matches came in its wake, but the phenomenal One of the Dead Man really set a standard, with credit also going to the team who worked tirelessly behind the scenes to get it filmed and edited in time. A true example of creativity and resourcefulness, and a storybook way to end a legendary career. Number 53, Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 31.
Ooh.
Alright, so we might be a little bit bored by Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns due to WWE booking it about 5,000 times in the the past several years, but before the combination became played out, it was pretty good value, particularly their first meeting for the WWE title at WrestleMania 31. This was the Brock show as he took control for most of the match and delighted in finding new and wonderful ways to batter the company's supposed top babyface. The big dog gave as good as he got, rocking Lesnar with some stiff shots of his own and busting the beast incarnate open. It was chugging along nicely and would have been great anyway, but Seth Rollins, who had lost earlier in the night to Randy Orton, decided that this was the stage to cash in his Money in the Bank briefcase, turning the match into a three-way. What transpired after was one of the most exciting endings in WrestleMania history. I mean, the only thing that I could think of that could possibly better it would be, I don't know, somebody lifting the ring off the ground with a tractor or something. That would never happen. Number 52, Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins at
Oh, this was so good.
Hell in a Cell 2022. Wrestlers are used to working through injuries, whether it's the general wear and tear that life on the road all but guarantees, or a more serious break or tear suffered during the course of a match itself. Ordinarily, when a wrestler suffers a complete tear of their pectoral muscle and ends up with so much bruising that their body resembles Barney the goddamn dinosaur, they would probably pull out of upcoming matches and schedule surgery ASAP. Especially if their next bout is inside a huge cage and has heavy expectations going in as a pay-per-view main event.
I forgot that Seth dressed up like Goldberg. Oh. No, not Goldberg. Wait, was it Goldberg? Am I insane? Dusty Rhodes. Yeah. Okay. You're right. My bad. Yeah. I feel like I'm losing my mind.
Cody Rhodes is quite simply no ordinary wrestler, which he proved when he decided to go 25 agonizing minutes with Seth Rollins at Hell in a Cell 2022. Not only was it a gutsy performance on the American Nightmare's behalf, but the match itself was genuinely brilliant and better than even the most hopeful fans probably assumed it would be when news of Cody's ailment became public knowledge. Number 51, Hulk Hogan versus Mr. McMahon at WrestleMania 19. There are several matches that could be considered genuine main events at WrestleMania 19, but WWE made the decision to promote Hulk Hogan versus Vince McMahon front and center. And why wouldn't they? At the end of the day, this was two of the biggest personalities in wrestling history going against one another, the promoter trying to crush the star that helped make him a fortune. The Hulkster was older and more beat up than he had been even a year before, and Vince has always moved like his legs are made from cement, so this was never going to be one for the purists. No, this was pure sports entertainment theatrics, pal, with Hogan and McMahon playing to their strengths and the match being overbooked in a bloody good way. There was blood, stunts, including Vince doing a leg drop off a ladder through the announce table, the mad bastard, and surprises like the first WWE appearance of Roddy Piper for 7 years. A big-time stadium spectacle and a first-class piece of Jerry action. Number 50, John Cena versus Umaga at Royal Rumble 2007. After John Cena became WWE champion and his popularity skyrocketed, the backlash began in earnest. To some who had cheered on the Doctor of Thugonomics and his rise to the summit, Cena had become a hokey, child-pandering merchandise machine, and they did not like it one bit.
I forgot this was Thugonomics Cena. I thought this was, I don't know, I thought this was like his like Super Cena era. Just two old men beating the fuck out of each other. Somehow that is still very enjoyable. I know I'm getting my timelines mixed up because like, I don't know, there's like at least like a billion years of like WWE and I'm like not like, and I'm not super up to date, but I don't remember when Thugonomics started and Super Cena, no, when Thugonomics ended and Super Cena started. That makes sense. That makes sense. Dude, this is my hyperfixation. I have like friends that I specifically watch like WWE with, and it's always super fun.
Before long, people began not just attacking his character, but also his ring work and perceived lack of grit. Even though Big Match John had been in his fair share of bloody brawls, his last man standing match with Umaga at the 2007 Royal Rumble is seen as a turning point where perceptions began to change. Against the Samoan Bulldozer, Cena had to dig very deep to survive a grisly and very inventive bout with his WWE title on the line. This also stands as Umaga's best ever WWE WWE match. Even though he was involved in the Battle of the Billionaires, he very much had to share the spotlight with several others. Here, he was the main man and showed the world what a tremendous talent he was and what he could produce when given the opportunity. Number 49, the Elimination Chamber at Survivor Series 2002.
Oh, I don't know this one for sure.
Like the previously discussed Money in the Bank ladder match, WWE fans didn't know exactly what to expect the first time they saw the Elimination Chamber. They'd seen the blueprints and had it hyped up plenty beforehand, but just how would it all play out? Sort of WWE's answer to old NWA/WCW favorite war games, the Elimination Chamber was a genius invention that has become one of WWE's signature matches over the past 20 years, with an eponymous pay-per-view being added to the calendar, as with Money in the Bank. At Survivor Series 2002, World Heavyweight Champion Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho, Kane, Booker T and Rob Van Dam were walking into the unknown, but
I forgot. I don't know why, but in my mind, he's always been the learning tree. But I know I'm like going crazy. But yeah, I don't know why. But yeah, that is the learning tree, right?
collectively did everything they could to make sure the Elimination Chamber's life started
Him
out
and
on
his
the
list.
right foot. It wasn't always smooth and not everything went according to plan, least of all the game suffering a crushed larynx when RVD hit him with a 5-star frog splash from the top of the holding pod, but it was an auspicious debut for the Chamber, filled with memorable moments. Most memorable of all was the end, with Michaels pinning Triple H to win a world title for the last time in his career.
Let's go!
Hall of Fame lineup, MSG setting, feel-good win. You know you want this, you schlegs. Just ignore HBK's turd tights and little Dutch boy haircut. Number 48.
Wait, stop! Was that really his haircut? Hold up.
Schlegs. Just ignore HBK's turd tights and little Dutch boy haircut.
No! Whoever gave him the haircut did him so fucking dirty. Stop! Oh no! Festy! Festy, no! What the heck? The yee ass haircut. No! Stop, no! It's fine. That's the kind of hair my auntie has.
Number 48, John Cena versus The Fiend Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania 36. The first night of WrestleMania 36, which had been thrown into flux due to the COVID-19 pandemic, belonged to the Boneyard match between The Undertaker and AJ Styles. The best thing on night 2 was a cinematic creation of an altogether different nature, with John Cena and Bray Wyatt bending minds inside the Firefly Funhouse. Not so much a wrestling match as almost a piece of experimental theatre, the Firefly Funhouse was unlike anything anyone could have predicted when it was first announced. Full of illusions and in-jokes, it was a time hop through the careers of both men as they recreated famous scenes from the past like John Cena's WWE debut and created their own bizarre scenarios such as Bray and John's alternative NWO lineup. It was like a fever dream of the David Lynch variety, and it didn't go over well with everyone. But whether you like it or not, it's certainly one of a kind, and while there's no real wrestling in it, so to speak, it's certainly another creative way to have a match in unprecedented circumstances. Number 47, Bret Hart versus Steve Austin at WrestleMania 13. WrestleMania 13 was, on the whole, a bit of a dud, but if anything could save it, it's a match between two all-time greats in Steve Austin and Bret Hart. Stone Cold and the Hitman had been warring for months, leading to this submission match with UFC star Ken Shamrock as special guest referee. Austin had misgivings about the match since he didn't have an established submission hold, unlike Bret Hart's sharpshooter finisher, while the excellence of execution believed that he was on a course for a rematch with Shawn Michaels until the sexy boy misplaced his smile. Making the absolute best out of the situation they found themselves in, the two men proceeded to contest an ultra-realistic and incredibly heated brawl that stands today as one of the greatest matches in company history. Both men knew who they were and believed fully in their characters, making audience suspension of disbelief that much easier, helped in no small part due to the very snug way the two men worked. The finish is quite simply iconic too, with a bloodied Austin passing out in Bret's preferred hold rather rather than cry uncle.
Damn!
There just aren't enough superlatives to adequately describe the match, finish, and post-match double turn, all of which were done to the very highest standard. So just watch it, alright? Number 46, Pat Patterson versus Sergeant Slaughter.
Oh, I definitely
in
don't know
MSG.
this one.
A good many years before ECW made Extreme in vogue, Pat Patterson and Sergeant Slaughter were teaching WWE fans the meaning of the word with their alley fight in Madison Square Garden on May 4th, 1981. After several matches between the two enemies resulted in a disqualification or countout, the booker decided that they would meet in a match that could not end with any ambiguity. Not only that, the alley fight didn't even have a referee on hand to intervene, even when Sarge suffered a massive cut to his head and ended up wearing the proverbial crimson mask. This was just two guys squaring off in a battle to the bitter end. Hardcore before hardcore was a thing, the alley fight featured very little in the way of actual wrestling or pre-planned spots. They just went out there and kicked and punched and hit each other with whatever they could get their nasty little hands on. The climax is manly as hell too, as Pat takes off his cowboy boot and repeatedly rams it into Slaughter's head to the point that his manager, the Grand Wizard, is forced to come out and throw in the towel. Number 45, CM Punk versus Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam 2013. The Best versus the Beast. The last truly great match that CM Punk had before infamously walking away from WWE was with Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam 2013.
Guys, can I just say, this era of like, this look of like CM Punk, I hate it because I think the mutton chops are so bad. The mutton chops are really, 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 really bad. Yeah. You both went to UFC. Have you guys, I don't know if you guys follow UFC, but have you seen like the Islam like crash out? The Islam, fuck. I still can't pronounce his last name. It's like, it's a little too hard for me. But yeah, he's like crashing out heavy right now. I know, CM Punk got absolutely washed in like UFC. It's kind of insane.
The two Paul Heyman guys went the classic David versus Goliath route in this no disqualification affair, with Brock using his aggressive force to continually neutralize the plucky Punk. For some reason, nobody in WWE had thought to do David versus Goliath with Lesnar since his return to the company some 16 months earlier, but luckily the straight-edge superstar was on hand to show them how it's done.
Damn.
There was fantastic brawling, violence, great counters, some nice MMA influence on display, and real drama, especially down the finishing stretch.
Whoa.
The only thing really missing from it was maybe blood, but that's a consequence of the PG times it happened in and in no way detracts from an incredible match.
Whoa.
A bully heel against a spirited babyface, with both men giving everything they had and coming out of the match better than they went into it. Punk versus Brock really was a great piece of business, and it's a crying shame we only saw it once. Appreciate it. Number 44, Stephanie McMahon versus Trish Stratus at No Way Out 2001. Trish Stratus eventually developed into a very good worker, helping change the way women were perceived in WWE on her way to becoming a Hall of Famer. In the beginning, however, the Canadian former fitness model was just another pretty face and hadn't yet developed the skills that would see her retire as a 7-time women's champion. The first inkling that Trish may have had what it takes to excel as an actual in-ring performer came during her match with Stephanie McMahon at No Way Out 2001, an unlikely suspect considering her own lack of in-ring experience. The two ladies had been engaged in a heated rivalry around Trish's affair with Stephanie's father, and the two went at it like cats and dogs, and the results were genuinely miraculous. Like any
I forgot that was a plot line. Oh, no.
match with a McMahon involved, this was more about pure theatrics, story and entertainment than about the quality of the moves or anything like that. Both Stratus and the Billion Dollar Princess turned heads and shut up critics, as they would continue to do for the rest of their careers. Number 43, Hulk Hogan and Mr. T versus Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff at WrestleMania 1. It's quite the understatement to say that the first WrestleMania was a gamble for Vince and Linda McMahon, who essentially rolled the dice and bet everything on the show being a success. They had put all of their eggs in the WrestleMania basket in a make-or-break move that thankfully paid off. A big reason for the original WrestleMania's success was the celebrity involvement, including A-Team star Mr. T's presence in the tag team main event.
Oh.
Clubber Lang joined forces with Thunderlips to take on the dastardly duo of Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff. Adding extra pizzazz were Jimmy Snuka and Bob Orton Jr. at ringside, along with the iconic Muhammad Ali, who was the special outside referee/enforcer.
Oh.
The match itself is, you know, okay. But if you are going to watch it, and you really should, do so for the hot crowd, the larger-than-life characters, the immense hype, the importance, and the history of it all. I pity the fool who's never seen it. Number 43, Shawn Michaels vs. Triple H at SummerSlam 2002. One thing WWE does better than just about anyone is presenting a wrestler's comeback, particularly if they're a major star. Whether it's as a surprise or promoted heavily ahead of time, they seem to have a knack of making a return, especially the more improbable ones, seem like a major deal. That was undoubtedly the case in the summer of 2002, when Shawn Michaels wrestled his first match in over 4 years after being forced to retire due to a severe back injury.
Damn.
The showstopper stepped back into the squared circle to take on former D-Generation X understudy Triple H in a non-sanctioned bout at that year's SummerSlam. It was hard to know what to expect going into it, given the stipulation and the question marks surrounding Shawn's condition, with some speculating whether his back would be able to hold up to the task. Michaels put everyone's mind at ease by entering a vintage performance harkening back to his heyday.
Damn.
It was the start of not just a longer comeback, but a whole second act in HBK's career. Number 41, the 2010 Royal Rumble. For a Royal Rumble match to be considered truly great, it must contain several elements, like star power, a surprise entrant or two, a couple of interesting story threads running through it, a shocking elimination, etc, etc. The
Okay.
2010 version ticked just about all these boxes and turned out to be one of the best Rumbles ever. There was plenty of star power, with believable
Who
winners in the
won?
way of Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Batista, Chris Jericho, John Cena, and others. There was the
that
great
is
bit at the
good.
start with CM Punk, who alternated between eliminating people and cutting a promo. Beth Phoenix became only the second woman in history to enter the Rumble match and eliminated the Great Khali while doing so.
Damn.
Shawn Michaels pulled at the heartstrings after he was eliminated. His quest to win the match and get another shot at The Undertaker at WrestleMania ostensibly ended.
Oh.
And then there was the shock return of Edge, who came back from injury to win the match for the first time in his career.
Oh.
In between all that, there is plenty to enjoy, and the 50 minutes fly by. Number 40, the Hart Foundation versus Steve Austin, Ken Shamrock, Goldust, and the Legion of Doom at In Your House Canadian Stampede. The last ever proper 2-hour WWE In Your House pay-per-view went out with a bang as the Hart Foundation clashed with a team led by Steve Austin in a Canada versus USA 10-man tag held in front of a molten crowd in Calgary. If the show had been emanating from the United States, Stone Cold and his crew would have been the heroes, but since it was taking place in the Great White North, it was Brett, Owen, Bulldog, The Anvil, and Pillman who were feverishly cheered on from their entrances to when the final bell was rung.
You
Not
know,
only was it
understandable.
very good as an actual match, but the mixed-up dynamic was a real novelty and something that WWE didn't necessarily welcome back then. When people talk about crowd heat, this is what they are referring to, as everything garnered a reaction, with the noise increasing throughout the 25-minute duration until the Bonzo Gonzo finish. The post-match scene with the
Damn.
extended Hart family celebrating in the ring is bittersweet, as tragedy after tragedy would strike not too long after. It's good to remember them all during happier times. Number 39,
Oh,
John
no.
Cena versus The Rock at WrestleMania 28.
Guys, I hate when they use Roman numerals. That shit, it gets so long and it's so hard to understand. What do you mean there's like 5 different characters for like 28?
Icon versus icon, past versus present. 2 Hollywood heavyweights collide. Once in a lifetime, but not really. John Cena
Yeah.
versus The Rock is the sort of blockbuster event tailor-made for the bright lights and grand stage of WrestleMania.
See, I'm just saying we could have had that in 2025. I don't know why we didn't have that, but we could have had that. But for some reason we didn't. And like, we really should have had it. Cause like, brother, you were cutting promos for like the longest of times, and for what? For what? We still can? I hope we do. I hope we do, because like, what were you doing on the mic all this time just for it to be John Cena versus oh my god, why is my mind blinking? Who was it, the most recent one? Cody, no, was it Cody Rhodes? Was he against Cody Rhodes recently? No, wasn't it? Was it against Cody recently? Oh yeah, Randy Orton. Yeah, him versus Randy Orton, by the way, the most like 2008 match I've ever seen in like a while. You know? No, was it 2008? Yeah, the most like 2008 match. I was like, holy shit. Yeah, oh yeah, Cody was Mania. It's looking like, why is he fighting R-Truth? Brother, what does R-Truth have to do with anything? Just fight The Rock, bro. Fight The Rock. Come on, man. Yeah, it's like the most like 2008 match ever. I was like, oh wow, 2025? But I mean, I'm not complaining. Like, you know, shit, I love the Viper. He hears voices in his head, bro. Like, how could anyone hate that? Cena's true childhood hero? God, I fucking love R-Truth, man. I love R-Truth. He's brilliant. He's my favorite.
The two superstars, who had legitimate beef with one another stretching back years, had one of the most entertaining feuds ever going into the match, which managed to measure up to lofty expectations. Dwayne Johnson hadn't wrestled a long singles match in close to a decade, but didn't display any signs of ring rust as he rolled back the years and went for 30 minutes with the face that runs the place. Was he a little bit gassed at the end? Understandably so, yes, but the match was the epic that everyone was promised, and it was one hell of an effort for a man who had been on set for so many years. The Great One and Big Match John helped WrestleMania 28 generate a whopping 1,217,000 pay-per-view buys, a WWE record. Number 38, Hulk Hogan versus Randy Savage at WrestleMania 5. The Mega Powers explode. Back in the so-called golden era, WWE's policy was to book things long-term, whether that be title runs, singular storylines, or a wrestler's next 2 or 3 feuds. Forward-thinking and pre-planning things out? A mad concept, I know.
Okay.
A shining example of this approach paying off was when Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan met in the main event of WrestleMania 5. The Macho Man and the Hulkster went from best friends and trusted tag partners to sworn enemies after Savage became paranoid that Hogan was trying to steal Miss Elizabeth away from him. No comment. The slow burn storyline, eventual breakup angle, and resultant match were all handled brilliantly. This was classic 1980s WWE in the way a lot of the match was worked, with the lovely Liz being involved frequently at the beginning. Savage was utterly convincing as the jealous, raving lunatic because, well, you know, whereas Hogan did his babyface shtick and put the work in on his way to winning his second WWE title. Number 37, Kurt Angle versus Shane McMahon at King of the Ring 2001. Kurt Angle is rightly noted for his intensity and being one of the best pure wrestlers in the history of the industry. The gold medalist knows his way around a suplex or a submission hold, but found himself outside of his comfort zone when he faced Shane McMahon in an extraordinary street fight at the 2001 King of the Ring. It was the third bout of the night for Angle, who had wrestled Christian and Edge in tournament matches earlier on. Seeing red after Shano had cost him the opportunity to become king for the second consecutive year, Kurt tortured the boss's son in one of the most brutal WWE matches ever.
I think I remember this one.
Both men got banged up
This
something
is the
fierce here, as they did not hold back one bit, with the most memorable moment being when Angle put Shane through panes of glass that were part of the entrance set. They stole the show, but it came at a real physical cost. Number 36, The Rock versus Triple H at SummerSlam 1998.
Girl, I don't know this one.
They turned into
I
two
wasn't
of
old
the
enough.
biggest stars of the Attitude Era, but it wasn't always that way for The Rock and Triple H. The People's Champion was finding his feet after embracing his heelish side as the leader of the Nation of Domination, while the Game was attempting to establish himself as the new leader of DX following the retirement of Shawn Michaels, when the two met over the Rock's Intercontinental title in a ladder match at SummerSlam 1998. It was a star-making performance from both men, turning them from mid-carders to main eventers in waiting. It's historically important as the moment where two future greats properly broke away from the pack, but it's also a hellacious fight and holds up a lot better than some other ladder matches because it's all about story, violence, and, you know, actually trying to win the damn match rather than just a bunch of dangerous spots. Dwayne and Hunter would have more battles in later years, including pay-per-view main events for the WWE title, which are also worth checking out even if they don't appear on our list. You can see the seeds of greatness being sown at SummerSlam 98. Number 35, The Undertaker vs. Shawn Michaels at In Your House Bad Blood. The second Undertaker vs. Shawn Michaels 5-star classic on this countdown, and don't you worry, there's another one coming in just a little bit. Sorry, not sorry. 12 years before they tore the house down at WrestleMania 25, Taker and HBK had the first ever Hell in a Cell match, a gimmick necessitated in order to make sure that nobody interfered and that there was a true winner, pitched by Jim Cornette and inspired by the last Battle of Atlanta roofed cage match from 14 years prior. It was another opportunity for Michaels to put in a devil-may-care performance, bumping around like an absolute lunatic, including taking a fall off the side of the cell and through the announce table. Seriously, Shawn was on another level when he wanted to be, and the Phenom held up his end of the bargain too, more than happy to play pinball with his opponent's body. It was revolutionary, bloody, unpredictable, and had an all-time great finish as Kane made his long-awaited debut to kick off the long-running saga with his kayfabe brother. Number 34, Jimmy Snuka vs. Bob Backlund in MSG. When telling the story of WWE, it would be remiss to overlook the impact that certain stars made before Vince McMahon's national expansion drive in the mid-80s. Prior to Hulkamania taking over, it was down to the likes of Jimmy Snuka and Bob Backlund to shift tickets and draw ratings. A fine example of their collective work is the WWE title cage match main event the two had together inside Madison Square Garden on June 28, 1982. It wasn't pretty, but it was very effective and had tremendous crowd heat as the fans really wanted to see Superfly end the champion's reign. Snuka ended up sporting a crimson mask in his pursuit of the gold as Backlund sent him face first into the steel. They continued to beat on each other until the barefoot high flyer went for the spectacular, foreshadowing an iconic scene over a year later when Snuka would meet Morocco in the same match type in the same venue. The challenger leapt from the top of the cage with an attempted Superfly splash, only to miss his intended target and crash in a heap on the canvas, allowing the champ to escape and retain his title. A historically significant clash between two important 80s icons and a highlight of Backlund's lengthy WWE title reign. Number 33, Rey Mysterio vs. Chris Jericho at the Bash 2009. The Intercontinental title is, or at least should be, one of the most prestigious in WWE. At times, though, the bloom has come off the rose and the perception of the IC title has diminished in the eyes of the fans. In 2009, Rey Mysterio and Chris Jericho did much to restore it to its former glory with a series of stupendous matches, including a trio on pay-per-view. In a perfect world, these matches would be watched in sequence as each one builds on the one before it, leading to the title versus mask match at the Bash. The pick of the bunch, the ultimate underdog on Y2J, flowed like water as they exchanged moves and counters to counters and counters to counters, the way only two veterans of their craft can. They took the audience one way, only to pull them in a completely different direction, playing off previous encounters in a wonderful example of storytelling and rewarding those that had followed their feud from the get-go. The finish, with Jericho trying to steal the mask only to discover it was a decoy and Mysterio had another one underneath, fit the context of their rivalry to a T.
That's
Number
so
32,
good, though.
John Cena versus Daniel Bryan at SummerSlam 2013. One of these men ticked all of the Vince McMahon likes this boxes, from his training to his look to, well, everything about his presentation and character. It's why he was on top for an entire decade plus. The other ticked very few of those same boxes because he was short, favored a technical style honed on the indies and overseas, and get this, he was a vegan. By rights, Daniel Bryan shouldn't have been challenging John Cena for the WWE title in the main event of SummerSlam 2013, let alone winning the damn thing, but his personality, talent, and overall likability forced WWE's hand. Though they were in many ways polar opposites, D-Bry and Big Match John shared much in common, along with their love of the Bella Twins, when it came to doing what they could do to put on great matches. And this was a great match, by no means carried by the American Dragon, who got his long-earned moment by besting the face that runs the place clean as a sheet. The post-match betrayal by special guest referee Triple H and cash-in by Randy Orton only intensified the growing yes movement too. Number 31, Chris Benoit versus Triple H versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 20. A match and especially an ending that brings up conflicting feelings given what would happen in the 3 or so years that followed. The Triple Threat World Heavyweight title main event of WrestleMania 20 is nonetheless remarkable. The 3 men tasked with headlining the 20th WrestleMania were expected to deliver a 5-star classic for the MSG faithful and millions watching around the world, and they delivered in spades. Triple H and Michaels had been feuding for the best part of 2 years and would continue to do so afterwards, but Benoit's involvement added extra intrigue and fans were heavily invested in seeing him realize a dream 18 years in the making. He got there at the end, but he had to earn it on the biggest night in his long career. There were many great teases where it looked like the Game or the Heartbreak Kid would walk away with the gold before the Rabid Wolverine forced the reigning champ to tap out clean in the middle. The post-match embrace between Benoit and best friend Eddie Guerrero is heartbreaking in retrospect, but it was a great moment at the time, the cherry on the top of the cake. Number 30, Brock Lesnar versus Eddie Guerrero at No Way Out 2004. As the business has changed and the average size of WWE stars has shrunk, it's no longer deemed unusual when somebody under, say, 6 feet tall and 220 pounds wins the big one. It certainly wasn't a regular occurrence when Eddie Guerrero beat Brock Lesnar to bag the WWE title at No Way Out 2004 though. The next big thing was the WWE Ideal, an all-American super freak who was really coming into his stride as a performer and just about to peak athletically. Latino Heat was undersized by standards of the time, a charismatic veteran wrestler, yes, but one who had spent most of his career in the United States as a mid-carder. Unexpectedly overcoming Lesnar in a tiring 30-minute war of attrition, Eddie realized a dream that he probably suspected was well out of reach, especially when he had been fired 2 odd years before due to substance abuse issues. A deserved moment at the end of a great match for one of WWE's most missed legends. Number 29, Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 26. Yes, it's our 3rd Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker match. I did tell you, I did warn you. Sorry, not sorry. Alright, maybe I am a bit sorry, but the truth is these two had just an insane level of chemistry with one another, and leaving off any of the 3 would feel wrong. And this...
Okay, genuine question. Who else do you think currently has that same level of chemistry in terms of, like, feuding? I can't think of any off the top of my head. I mean, Drew McIntyre just feuds with, like, every fucking buddy, so... The Bloodline feud was kind of... To be honest, the Bloodline feud was just kind of, like, whatever for me. Sammy K... Oh, you're right. The Sammy KO feud is actually really compelling, huh? I don't know if it's at the same level, but... Brother, I don't know. Sammy, you've been, like, betrayed, like, 1 billion times. Like, just call it quits. Just like, stop trusting people, man. I wouldn't trust anyone. Shit. Know what I mean?
Is a historic match, as it was the last one in the showstopper's career. Well, at least until Saudi Arabia, but let's just all agree to pretend that that never happened, shall we? A rematch from the year before, WWE smartly put Michaels and Taker on last this time, as HBK fought once again to end the streak, knowing that if he lost, he would never be able to wrestle again.
Damn.
It was a different match than the previous one, though with some neat callbacks to it. They actually built on what they had done before and managed to keep a tired crowd enthused at the end of a long night, with some of the closest near-falls you're ever likely to see before the inevitable. A fitting end for one of the GOATs.
Ooh.
Number 28, Rob Van Dam versus Jeff Hardy at Invasion. The 2001 WCW and ECW invasion of WWE was a bit of a colossal failure, all things considered, but one of the silver linings of the whole thing was the emergence of Rob Van Dam on the global stage. The whole flipping show got over with the WWE audience immediately because he was simply unlike anyone else on the roster at the time. The closest thing to him in terms of style and laid-back demeanor was probably Jeff Hardy, who, it transpired, made for a complimentary adversary. Their best match together was their first, a show-stealing hardcore title match at the Invasion pay-per-view. A lot of hardcore title matches from the era felt like an endless succession of inconsequential bin-lid shots and bordered on comedy, but Rob and Jeff forewent that in favor of high-flying, audience-brawling, some big stunts, and just a couple of weapons like a chair and ladder. If you're going to watch one WWE hardcore title match, make it this one. Number 27, Owen Hart vs. Bret Hart at WrestleMania 10. A relatable story that many can sympathize with is the tale of the jealous brother. In wrestling, warring brothers can make for a compelling storyline, but they don't always have chemistry when it comes to throwing down in the ring. That was not something that Bret and Owen Hart had to worry about when they wrestled each other for the first time ever in the opener of WrestleMania 10. A complete and utter clinic, the Hitman and the Rocket didn't put a foot wrong for 20 beautiful minutes, telling a fantastic story by pacing themselves and letting the match build naturally. Bret called himself the excellence of execution, and the execution by both was first rate here, which is even more impressive when you know that they completely changed the game plan up in the days before the show, eliminating much of Owen's high-flying offense in favor of sneaky heel tactics. It worked like a charm and really helped elevate Bret's baby brother, setting him up for some WWE title showdowns with the Pink and Black Attack a few months down the line. Flawless. Number 26, Steve Austin vs. Kevin Owens at WrestleMania 38. There is definitely a place for nostalgia in wrestling, especially on a special occasion like WrestleMania. There was really no better place for Steve Austin to have his first match in 19 years than at 2022's Showcase of the Immortals, which took place in Austin's beloved Lone Star State. It wasn't advertised as an actual match ahead of time, but anyone who followed the news or saw the shape that the Texas Rattlesnake had gotten himself into in preparation knew that things would turn physical. KO had spent months running down Texas, and Austin finally had enough, coming out of retirement for an impromptu match to close out night one of Mania 38. There was concern that Austin would look old and worn down, since he was in his 50s and had well-documented injury woes, but those concerns were brushed aside as he and Owens had a sprawling Attitude-era throwback brawl that made viewers who watched Stone Cold in his prime all fuzzy for 1998. Now where's my South Park VHS and 20p bottle of Panda Pop when I need them? Number 25, TLC 2 at WrestleMania X7. It must be incredibly hard to produce a worthy sequel to a classic match, especially when that match is as stunning as the first tables, ladders, and chairs match. It's a testament to the talent, creativity, and fearlessness of Edge and Christian, the Hardys, and the Dudleys that they were able to not only match their initial effort, but surpass it at WrestleMania X7. To recap all the thrills, spills, and genuine insanity in it would be trite, but TLC 2 is about as perfect a spot fest as you can get. All six men were hungry to improve on their first effort, especially as this match would be in front of such a huge crowd at WrestleMania. And it wasn't just the three teams that contributed either, but Rhino, Spike Dudley, and Lita, who all got involved in the chaos as well. Standout moments include Edge spearing Jeff from high above, Matt and Bubba sailing through a stack of tables at ringside, and Jeff's signature swanton off a ladder through a table, but everything here is impressive, and it builds tremendously as the stunts and drama intensify with each hair-raising minute. Number 24, Hulk Hogan versus the Iron Sheik in MSG. This is about as 1980s WWE as it gets. You've got the American-made babyface star taking on the heel from distant lands in Madison Square Garden with the WWE title on the line.
No, but I love the Iron Sheik
from Bob Backlund 28 days beforehand, and fans in MSG must have had an inkling that the man from Tehran, Iran was a mere transitional champion in order to get the title around the waist taste of the Golden Goose. As an actual match, there's really not that much to it, and it barely lasts 5 minutes before Hogan leg drops his way into the history books by winning his first WWE title. That said, it's perfect for what it is, and they were wise to keep things short so as not to expose Hulk on his first big night. It kicked off the modern era in WWE with a bang and is a truly history-making happening. Worth watching together with the pre- and post-match interviews, of course, as they are very much part of the full presentation.
Oh.
Number 23, Team Cena versus Team Authority at Survivor Series 2014. What good would a list of must-watch once WWE matches be without at least one traditional Survivor Series elimination tag? No good, that's
Wait.
what. But trust me when I tell you, I'm not just arbitrarily sticking the 2014 Survivor Series main event on here. It is genuinely very
Was that
good
Mark
and sticks
Henry
out
earlier?
more than a lot of the others because of the various stories being told, the stipulations at play, and the typically high standard of the work. Special credit must go to Dolph Ziggler, who did his best Shawn Michaels impression as the babyface battling the numerical odds at
I
the
love
end.
Mark Henry.
It was hard not to be roped in by the pageantry of it all, and once
Damn.
WWE knew they had us, they chose the moment to bring out Sting for his first ever WWE appearance, and talk about peaking early. There are a lot of moving parts, and it might
Damn.
not work quite as well so far removed from the context of what was happening at the time, but it does still work, and there's enough going on from unexpected eliminations to less than unexpected heel turns and a bunch else
Well-
to savor. Number 22, Randy Savage
Were we
versus
that
Ric Flair at
surprised?
WrestleMania 8. In the build-up to WrestleMania 5, Randy Savage went absolutely ballistic when he suspected that Hulk Hogan had an ulterior motive when it came to Miss Elizabeth. In the run-up to WrestleMania 8, Ric Flair played with fire by taunting the Macho Man about his alleged prior relationship with Savage's wife, claiming that she was mine before she was yours, and labeling her damaged goods. Needless
That's
to say,
fucked
old
up.
hot-headed Randy wanted to kill the Nature Boy and take his WWE title. Both Flair and Savage have their own distinct style, and they meshed beautifully on the grandest stage in what was, incredibly, the first singles match they ever had, and only the third time they'd really shared a ring outside of the 1992 Royal Rumble and a tag match at a house show. The two of them just going out and wrestling for 20 minutes would have been enjoyable enough, but since this is WrestleMania, there was a little extra pizzazz due to the involvement of Mr. Perfect and Liz. A great WWE title grudge match between two genuine icons of the industry. Number 21, Chris Jericho versus The Rock at No Mercy 2001. By this point, the invasion angle was circling the drain.
Okay.
WWE had given up the ghost when it came to trying to keep the whole Alliance versus WWE thing a cohesive storyline.
I'm genuinely curious to see what the last few matches are. Are they... okay, like, I'm genuinely, like, excited to see. Because some of the matches that I thought would be, like, pretty high up have already been mentioned. So how much better can it possibly get? Are you liking this video? You are, aren't you? Aren't you? Well, if you like this video, remember to like and subscribe. Also, drop a comment down telling me what you want to see next, and maybe I'll do it. Maybe I won't. Who knows? You'll have to keep watching, don't you? There's actually some kind of ongoing story to this shit. Okay, so it's basically... these are the matches to watch if you are getting into WWE, specifically. So these are the ones that are exciting. These are the ones that have good pacing, you know, just... It's not a dud match, that's for sure. They're not in any particular order. Yeah, I can imagine, but... man, if only it was like a top 10 kind of thing, you know?
WWE guys wrestled against WWE guys, Alliance guys wrestled against Alliance guys, and people switched allegiance on a weekly basis.
Well,
it was
yeah.
maddening, but a positive consequence was that it gave us The Rock and Chris Jericho's WCW title match at No Mercy. The most
Ooh.
electrifying man in sports entertainment and the Ayatollah of rock and roller made you forget about what a washout the potential biggest money angle in wrestling was turning into by putting on a wildly entertaining match that was one of WWE's best matches of a very
They
good
really
year
look
as
so
far as
young.
in-ring goes. It's The Rock and Chris Jericho on pay-per-view with a major title at stake, so you know what to expect, but they managed to exceed even the lofty hopes put on them, sowing the seeds for Y2J's heel turn and undisputed title win a couple of months later in the process.
Ooh.
Number 20, AJ Styles versus John Cena at Royal Rumble 2017. For people watching the simultaneous rise of John Cena in WWE and AJ Styles in TNA, the thought of them meeting in a ring seemed almost impossible.
Is that AJ Styles? Huh? Wait. Stop. I don't know that man. Where's his soccer mom haircut? I don't know this man. What the fuck? Get the style... Sir. Where's his I'm dropping my kids off at school haircut? I don't know this man. Who is this? What the heck? Oh no. No, I remember him in New Japan, but like I vaguely remember him in New Japan. I know he was in there. I vaguely remember him, but like I am so used to seeing like, you know, 2021, 2022 AJ Styles. Like, who is this? This was style back then? Oh. Girl, I'm just sat here like, huh?
The phenomenal one was too small for WWE, and there was no way Vince's franchise guy would ever find himself making an entrance in the Impact Zone. By 2016, however, things had changed sufficiently to where Styles was on his way into WWE, as Cena was still one of the main men, but had become a more part-time performer. Their summer series, including matches at Money in the Bank and SummerSlam, was great, but they somehow went one better with their WWE title bout at the 2017 Royal Rumble. This was the best of both men, a rollicking 25 minutes that had everyone guessing with some incredible near falls. It tipped in favor of Cena, netting him his record-tying 16th world title. Number 19, Trish Stratus versus Mickie James at WrestleMania 22. At WrestleMania 22 in 2006, Trish Stratus and Mickie James had a women's title match that not only wasn't a simple 5-minute afterthought, but a conclusion to a storyline that had been developing over the course of 6 months. Trish and Mickey's single white female-inspired story had gotten more attention than any other between two female WWE performers in an age, and really, that's what made their match so special. Because while the bulk of the action was good, some of it was a bit sloppy, including the messed up ending. But that's not what fans will remember it for. They will remember it for the crowd heat it generated, the way the characters played off each other, and how the way the match went really did fit into how the storyline had played out. Both women have had better matches in their careers, yes, but few as symbolic, meaningful, or important. Number 18, Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit at Royal Rumble 2003. Call it sports entertainment all you want, but the word on the marquee is wrestling, and two men who did that better than just about anyone were Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit. The Rabid Wolverine and the Olympic hero had met countless times before they locked up at the 2003 Royal Rumble, but their WWE title match that night in Boston was their best as opponents. This was a tale of two unparalleled technicians piecing together the proverbial human chess match as they sought to outmaneuver the other, which led to an abundance of ultra-crisp counter wrestling. There was no shortage of suplexes or submission attempts, as you would expect, and the pace never let up, leading to an intricate but by no means convoluted closing stretch. Refreshingly, after such a close and hard-fought match, Angle retained without resorting to underhanded methods, shaking off several crossface attempts to finally cinch in the ankle lock and force the crippler to tap. Benoit lost on the night, but his performance earned him a rare standing ovation when he got to his feet. Number 17, The Shield versus Ryback and Team Hell No at TLC 2012. The Shield made an instant impact in WWE with their debut at Survivor Series 2012 and subsequent weeks of wreaking havoc on WWE television. But the first real test would be their in-ring debut as a unit, which took place at the TLC pay-per-view. Put in with babyface trio Ryback and Team Hell No in a 6-man tables, ladders and chairs match, Rollins, Reigns and Ambrose took full advantage of the opportunity opportunity and got their run off to the strongest start possible. It was non-stop, barely controlled chaos for close to 25 minutes.
God, the shield
Crucially,
makes me
it
so
told a
happy.
great story too, and everyone got their chance to shine amid the weapon shots, big bumps, and stunts. Even the big guy, who has become a figure of derision in recent years, was in fine form
Poor
here.
Ryback.
A total show stealer, this was never boring and announced the arrival of the Shield in a major way, making everyone believers in the Hounds of Justice. Number 16, Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 33. At WrestleMania 20, Brock Lesnar and Goldberg were booed out of Madison Square Garden by an unruly crowd who resented the fact that both men were on their way out of the company immediately after. It was a disaster, turning the would-be dream match into a total nightmare. Was funny to watch at the time, mind. Luckily for Big Bill and the Beast Incarnate, they got the opportunity to do it over 13 years later with far better results. Rather than the protracted, disinterested stall fest they had done all those years earlier, Brock and Goldberg flew right out of the gate and went hell for leather from the opening bell. Less a wrestling match than one of those monster movies like Godzilla vs. King Kong, this Clash of the Titans had the 75,000 watching in the arena going banana. Get it? For everything they did. Which goes to show that in wrestling, it's not what you do or how much of it you do, but how you do it, where and why. Because this match lasted less than 5 minutes and felt utterly satisfying when it was over. Like a good shag. Number 15, Shawn Michaels versus Mankind at In Your House Mind Games.
Did he just say like a good shag? But also, describing that match as like Godzilla versus King Kong absolutely makes sense to me, and I kind of hate how much I understand that. Oh, I did. I am like so inundated with things to watch now that I'm like, oh no, now I'm like feeling overwhelmed. I'm not gonna lie. Ugh. Just way too inundated. I mean, like, this one probably best match on the... Ooh, I don't remember this one.
Even just from an immediate visual standpoint, Mankind versus Shawn Michaels told an interesting story. On one side, you've got the in-shape pretty boy babyface champion. On the other, the sadistic masked baddie with a menacing aura of danger permeating his every move. In the ring, their two styles couldn't have been more different, but they also couldn't have clicked any better, with both Michaels and Foley's willingness to push their bodies to the limit enabling a genuine classic. Shawn was in his true physical prime here, and Mick was eager to impress in his first WWE pay-per-view main event, so they held nothing back when it came to the punishment they put themselves through. Not that it's just a bump fest or anything like that, though. On the contrary, there was plenty of psychology and character work, and they told an engrossing story over the course of 26 brilliantly booked minutes. One thing that irked people at the time was the lack of a decisive finish, but the post-match scene involving Vader, Sid and The Undertaker does end things on an exciting note. Number 14, Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper at WrestleMania 8. One of the hardest matches to make truly interesting is babyface versus babyface, as with nobody to really boo, fans can find it hard to get invested in the action. Leave it to two wrestling geniuses like Bret Hart and Roddy Piper then to figure out how to do it right, as their all babyface encounter at WrestleMania 8 is perhaps the best example of its type. Despite them both being perceived as good guys, neither man pandered or tried to act the hero, and their match was as stiff as anything from that time. Hot Rod even tried to capitalize when Bret got split open by biting the wound, which incidentally had been done covertly as WWE had a staunch no blood policy at the time. Flair tried the same later on in his match with Savage, but he was found out and duly fined. This one gets forgotten about by some because Bret was such a machine and had an endless parade of classics in those days, but it's certainly one of Piper's better matches and a classic piece of storytelling filled with tight work and fascinating psychology. Capping it off was Rowdy Roddy doing an almost unheard of clean job for the Hitman while dropping the Intercontinental title to him. Respect. Number 13, Mike Awesome versus Masato Tanaka at ECW One Night Stand 2005.
Oh, I definitely don't know this one. But also, guys, we've been watching this for a while, and I am surprised that the Montreal Screwjob has not been dropped yet. Genuinely surprised. Probably towards the end then, huh? So listen to the commentary on that one. Really? Is it that bad? Ooh. You have to go since there are more children watching already. I do agree that, like, the blood probably had to go, because like if they were moving to something that's a more PG, the blood's definitely not friendly. Like, you know that kids would attempt to like draw blood and whatnot. Ooh, okay, yeah, I don't know this one for sure, for sure.
WWE decided
Should I
to
skip it
revive
then?
ECW 4.5 years after it had kicked the bucket with One Night Stand 2005, a nostalgia-filled love letter to Paul Heyman's revolutionary promotion. The entire show, from presentation and matches to booking, was pitched just right, but one bout well and truly took home Match of the Night honors. And it didn't feature a single contracted WWE performer, but rather two ECW originals with a point to prove. Mike Awesome and Masato Tanaka, who had put on some of the most incredible matches in ECW history, ran it back one last time, and it was, well, in a word, awesome. Mike had a point to prove, not only to the ECW faithful who resented him from walking out of the promotion and joining rival WCW while reigning as ECW champion, but WWE wrestlers and fans who had seen him far from his best during the invasion. This was wood-breaking, brain cell scrambling anarchy that just escalated, and while much of what they did shouldn't be copied for anyone who's looking to have a long career, you cannot fault the endeavor. Number 12, The Rock vs. Steve Austin at WrestleMania X7. Certain rivalries can come to define eras, and The Rock vs. Steve Austin was the definitive feud of the Attitude Era. The Texas Rattlesnake and Brahma Bull headlined 2 WrestleManias during that period, including a third during the Ruthless Aggression Era, and good as all 3 of their Mania matches were, it's the middle match in the trilogy that lives longest in the memory. The story to it was simple but effective. Both men wanted to be WWE champion, and neither man could imagine not holding the title. Austin was not long back from major neck surgery and was looking to reclaim his crown in front of a massive Texas crowd, while Rock was eager to hold onto the throne, having usurped Stone Cold's position in his absence. Set up exquisitely with that Limp Bizkit My Way video package, anticipation was through the roof for the match, which was everything fans could have asked for and more. Just 2 ass kickers going all out in the biggest match on the grandest stage. Austin's surprise heel turn was ill-advised, yes, but it doesn't take anything away from this masterpiece. Number 11, John Cena vs. CM Punk on Raw. The final match between 2 great rivals, John Cena and CM Punk's main event from the February 25th, 2013 episode of Raw, took some people by surprise with just how good it was, but it really shouldn't have. Punk and Cena were gold whenever they stepped in the ring with each other, and in the Raw main event and with a shot against WWE champion The Rock at WrestleMania on the line, they weren't about to phone it in. The key to what made this so good and different from their other encounters was that they had us believing in an outcome other than the one that everyone watching had assumed was a foregone conclusion. It was a WrestleMania caliber match on free television and honestly blew the eventual Rock vs. Cena match out of the water. They were even able to catch the announcers off guard when Punk hit Cena with a pile driver, a move that had been outlawed for an age, in a gripping false finish. Punk himself has cited this as the match that he's most proud of from his career because he was deathly ill with the flu at the time, and he and Cena went 30 minutes without calling anything besides the pile driver beforehand. Now that's what I call the art of wrestling. Number 10, Randy Savage vs. Ricky Steamboat at WrestleMania 3.
I don't know. I'm excited though. I'm excited. Yeah, that has to be a really good match. Like, just off of the people mentioned alone, that had to be a really fucking good one.
Routinely name-checked as the match that convinced many future stars to get into the business, Ricky Steamboat and Randy Savage's Intercontinental title match from WrestleMania 3 is still held in the highest esteem today. Hogan and Andre may have drawn the house that day, but the Dragon and the Macho Man stole the show with a cutting-edge piece of work that was wrestled at a much quicker pace than what was standard at the time and featured countless near falls from the beginning. As noted earlier, Savage was a stickler for detail and he mapped out the match to Steamboat well in advance, the two memorizing their moves and sequences to the point that it was locked in their brains. It's obviously not all about arm drags and knife-edge chops, mind. It's about the story they tell and the feeling they create and how they're able to control the emotions of such a large crowd, leading to the payoff everyone was hoping to see. It of course helped that they had such a compelling angle going into it, with the dragon seeking revenge after having his throat crushed and the match being his last shot at the title. There's something timeless about all of it, from the execution of the in-ring action to the setting to even the simple but brilliant gear both men wore for combat. Number 9, the 6-man Hell in a Cell at Armageddon 2000. Look at the star power here. My word. 5 of the all-time greats. And Rikishi. Kidding, Big Quiche, don't stink face me. WWE had an embarrassment
No, this has to be a good match,
when
huh?
it came to top-level talent at the tail end of 2000 and decided to stick 6 of them in one match inside Hell in a Cell, no less, for their final pay-per-view of the year, the aptly titled Armageddon. The sextet of Attitude Era legends had all been involved with each other in some way, shape or form for the last several months, and everything came to a head with Kurt Angle's WWE title on the line. The story threads intersected in interesting ways in the cell, as one after another the combatants got bloodied and bruised. Partway through, Vince McMahon and his stooges attempted to stop the madness, but only made things worse after ripping the door off its hinges. Rikishi was the unwitting victim of this well-intentioned act, as his 400-plus pound frame ended up sailing off the side of the steel structure onto a flatbed truck below. That was the highlight reel moment of the match, but the whole thing is great and a good example of why this particular era is looked back on so fondly. Number 8, Shawn Michaels versus Ric Flair at WrestleMania 24. If you could write a way to wrap up your legendary career after 4 decades in the ring, you would struggle to do much better than having a classic match with another fellow great at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Ric Flair got the red carpet treatment for his farewell, inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame the night before meeting Shawn Michaels at the granddaddy of them all. Speaking of granddaddies, Slick Rick was getting on at this point and wasn't the world beater he once was, but if anyone was going to get a worthy effort out of him, it was HBK. It was suitably epic given the stage and the stakes involved. As per the storyline, Flair essentially had to wrestle every match as though it was his last, as Mr. McMahon had decreed that the next time he lost he would have to retire. There was a strong sense that WrestleMania 24 would be the end, but the two veterans kept fans guessing with near falls and ramped up the drama as the match wore on. Shawn pulled out several rarely seen tricks like a springboard moonsault through the announce table, while Flair got to play his greatest hits and even successfully hit a move off the top rope after 1,000 attempts before his spiritual successor Old yelled at him with sweet chin music. I'm sorry,
not the sweet chin
I love
music.
this match, and so will you. Number 7, Randy Orton versus Mick Foley at Backlash 2004. Randy Orton was bred to be a WWE superstar, but
I forgot that he had a period of time where he had hair. I don't know this man. I don't know this man. The through table must have really hurt. It looks like it must have been painful. He hadn't hurt. Oh, this wasn't his. This is before his schizophrenia arc then, huh? Randy still some hair left. Well, if you look hard enough, I suppose. But he hadn't heard the voices yet. I see.
But it wasn't until his program and eventual singles match with Mick Foley that people began to fully grasp his immeasurable potential. The Legend Killer had targeted the hardcore legend, forcing him out of retirement for a street fight at Backlash 2004. Orton had, to that point, been considered something of a pampered pretty boy, talented but one of the hand-picked prospects from WWE's developmental territory who could go either way depending on how he progressed and matured. Fans really started to appreciate Randy a whole lot more after he and Foley brutalized each other in their violent Intercontinental title scrap. It was a star-making night for Orton, who took his lumps by being thrown off the stage, taking a bump on drawing pins, and having other nasty things done to his chiseled body. Foley, as ever, was game to maim himself and did everything within his power to get himself, his opponent, and the match over. They didn't go too far with the gore either, and managed to blow off their feud while simultaneously leaving fans wanting more. After this display of fortitude, it wasn't long before Orton was a fully fledged babyface after capturing his first world title. Number 6, Brock Lesnar versus Seth Rollins versus John Cena at Royal Rumble
this sounds like it'd be a good
2015.
match.
The 2015 Royal Rumble pay-per-view was notoriously
Shield
naff, with
Roman.
fans vehemently turning on the show at the end when Roman Reigns won the Rumble match. If WWE had switched the Rumble around with the WWE title triple threat between Brock Lesnar, John Cena and Seth Rollins, they might have went off the air in happier circumstances. Because the three men had a slobber knocker for the ages that had all the car crash style action you would want, while also being as smartly booked as any match in recent memory. Everyone got the opportunity to look good, with the Architect proving that he could hang out on the main stage by keeping up with his esteemed opponents. The Beast Incarnate was in the mood to sweat for his big fat paycheck, while Cena was his old reliable self. The chemistry and timing were there for all to see, and the match was laid out in a way that it gave fans something they had never quite seen before. One of the best WWE title matches of the past decade for sure.
You know?
Number 5, The Undertaker versus Mankind at King of the Ring 1998. One of the most famous professional wrestling matches of all time, Mankind at Undertaker's Hell in a Cell outing from the 1998 King of the Ring retains its glow almost a quarter of a century later. Even if you haven't seen the full match, you have seen the two big falls that Foley took off the side and through the top of the cage. In an era filled with wild bumps and crazy stunts, they stuck out as exceptional and will rightfully be on WWE's highlight reels until the end of time.
Can I be real? After watching this video, I feel so scared for Mick Foley. Like, holy shit, bro has been through everything. I mean, I know it's his job, but like, Jesus Christ, how is Mick Foley still like okay? Ow, he's fallen off of things. He got hit by like, oh man, oh that's scary, right?
But Foley suffered beyond those
Ow!
quite frankly terrifying falls, and Taker, though he didn't go all Evel Knievel himself, also deserves credit for working the match on a messed up ankle. But really, this is the match that turned Foley from WWE star to legend in the minds of many. After the big bumps, there's still a lot of match left, and it's simply incredible that Mrs. Foley's baby boy was able to go on and take yet more abuse. Did his escapades raise the bar too high for those seeking infamy going forward? Perhaps, but it has more than stood the test of time and remains one of the darndest things this presenter has ever seen.
It's
Number 4,
cool, though.
Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar on SmackDown. Look, if I'm going to watch two people wrestle for an entire gosh darned hour, I want them to be an Olympic gold medalist and a future UFC heavyweight champion. Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle settled their WWE title rivalry on the September 18th, 2003 episode of SmackDown in a rare 60-minute Iron Man match that featured a little bit of everything, not just the requisite textbook technical wrestling. There was brawling, psychology, big moves, and they really told a great story in a match type that can be hard to do well. You expect two well-conditioned studs like Lesnar and Angle not to tire, but they really put in a shift here and had an Iron Man match unlike any other. There have been some really great one-hour Iron Man matches before, namely the ones between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart and The Rock and Triple H, but this one, for my money, is the pick of the bunch, and if you're going to watch just one WWE Iron Man match in your life, it should be Brock and Kurt's. It's not flawless, but it's not very often you get to see two generational athletes in their prime go at it in these circumstances.
Damn.
Number 3, the two-man power trip versus Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit on Raw. Short-lived though they were, the two-man power trip of Steve Austin and Triple H were a force to be reckoned with in the spring of 2001, at one point holding the World, Intercontinental and Tag Team titles at the same time. The night after Hunter dropped the IC strap to Kane, he and Stone Cold put their tag team titles on the line against Chris's Benoit and Jericho in the main event of Raw. It was rare to see the tag belts put in such a prominent position on WWE's flagship show, with WWE giving the four men ample time to do their magic. And magic is just what we got, as the two teams turned in one of the best Raw matches ever. A
Hell
throwback
yeah.
to great tag team matches of the past, they didn't need wacky gimmicks or crazy stipulations to tell their story, which was simple yet effective. The heels were tenacious and used underhanded tactics while cutting their fiery opponents off, building anticipation for the eventual hot tag. The two biggest stars bumped their behinds off for the perceived underdogs, and the game proved his mettle by finishing the match despite tearing his quad off the bone. Barnstorming stuff from the beginning to the end. Number 2, Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart at Survivor Series 1997, where the previous match will go down in history for Triple H's ability to gut it out despite being in excruciating
Is that
pain.
what I think it
this
is?
one will forever be remembered for being the scene of the Montreal Screwjob.
I knew
And
it!
like the previous match, that is a bit of a shame because everything up until the finish was pretty damn good.
I knew they were
Shawn
going to
Michaels
mention
and
the
Bret
Montreal
Hart had wrestled
Screwjob.
several technically superior matches in the past, including a 60-minute Iron Man match in the main event of WrestleMania 12, but their Survivor Series 97 headliner was something different altogether. A lot had happened in the time between the two matches, as the personal relationship between them had deteriorated considerably. Rather than exchange holds on the mat, this was a straight-up hockey fight with barely a wrestling move used. They beat the dog out of each other in convincing fashion in front of a sizzling hot crowd. Yes, you've seen the finish and heard 25 years of speculation, commentary, and conspiracy theory, but you ought to give the match itself at least one spin if you haven't already. Number 1, The Rock versus Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 18. A match that had seemed unfathomable at one point, The Rock versus Hulk Hogan was the dream match as far as many wrestling fans were concerned. A match befitting a stadium setting, the Great One versus the Hulkster was fantasy warfare made real, with the face of WWE's past meeting the face of the present in front of almost 70,000 rowdy fans.
That's
It wasn't
true.
the main event in the sense that it didn't go on last, but it was by far the main attraction, and the reaction of the Toronto audience made that plainly obvious. In an interesting twist, the fans gave supposed heel Hogan a hero's welcome and forced him and Rock to switch things up on the fly, recrafting things based on feel and listening to what the crowd wanted them to do. The WWE audience hadn't watched Hulk wrestle on a WWE pay-per-view in 9 years, and they simply didn't want to see their childhood favorite be the bad guy.
I guess
Was it
so.
a technical marvel? Of course not, far from it. But if you want to see a show of star power where two megastars work an audience like a fiddle, getting the absolute maximum out of every move, sequence, and facial expression, then this is it, brother. And there we are,
guess so,
101
but
WWE
damn.
matches you should watch at least once. I am knackered. Time for a serious cup of mud.
Isn't it like wild that now Hulk Hogan is like incredibly hated? Isn't it like kind of crazy? Isn't it kind of like incredible that like, I don't know, I know that some of the figures mentioned in this video are very controversial to say the least, but I do still feel like what they've done, they still, you know, deserve their flowers. Now, naturally, I don't condone anything that any of the controversial people have done, but I do still feel like, you know, if the match was good, you can't discount, you know, the effort put in from the other wrestler. I think that it would be rude to the other wrestlers to discount how good the match was because of the actions of one person. Naturally, you know, we don't fucking condone it because that shit is bad. It's like really fucking bad, you know? And wrestling is one of the sports where it has a ton of controversial figures, regardless of, you know, anything. But it is still a very interesting medium.